jumpstart our economy? Will there be any transparency, or is this going to be just exactly what we just saw play out with AIG? And how could we possibly keep it from being exactly what we just saw play out with AIG? Congressman, thank you.
No, I don't expect transparency. I think all government funding, there's shenanigans going on. And, a few months ago we passed out these TARP funds without any restrictions. Now we're struggling, and the Congress is trying to make this point, oh, yes, we're going to have oversight by cutting these bonuses. And that's just grandstanding. But the real monitoring and oversight and transparency we need are the trillions of dollars that the Federal Reserve is involved in. So, no, I do not expect transparency to come about. It'll become transparent when the dollar goes bust.
Congressman Paul, this is Mark Skousen. Listen, we were told that AIG had to be bailed out because it was too big to fail. And in fact, here on Wall Street, everybody says the big mistake was not bailing out Lehman Brothers, that's what caused this whole thing to collapse and so forth. In your judgment, if we had not bailed out AIG, how many insurance companies would have gone down, and could have that been a even more serious problem this country would be facing?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the numbers. There's no way of knowing exactly, and it would have been a serious problem. But the serious problem would have been the blame should have been placed on the Federal Reserve and the previous system. Patching it up and delaying the inevitable is the real problem that we have, and that's what we're doing. So no, I think the bankruptcy should occur. If it's a real asset, it's going to be bought up. But this whole idea of propping up this derivatives, that's what an illiquid asset is. It's a worthless derivatives, and the taxpayers buying these things up. So no matter how difficult it would have been to see AIG go bankrupt, it has to be a lot better. It would have been a lot better than the monster that we're creating now. Before, Peter talked about the nose under the tent when we were talking about these contracts. But the nose went under the tent when we started this bailout, but you literally could say the nose was under the tent to create this monster once we endorsed the monetary system we have. I think you're right, Mark. The conditions could well be very bad and very serious. I would expect they would be if we'd allowed AIG to go bankrupt. But my argument is that's what should have happened, and it would have been less painful than the pain that we're suffering now and the pain that we're going to suffer here in the next decade or two.
Right.
Turns out.
What a foreign-sounding concept.
Yeah,
Honoring
of
contract.
course, it's a lot more painful to bail them out than let them fail. As difficult as it might have been to let AIG fail, the cost of propping them up is worse. And what you don't see is we keep AIG in business, but what we don't see is all the companies that are going to be driven out of business that might have been a lot more profitable. And, there's a lot of resources that are being utilized by this company that would be better off in other parts of the economy. But the government is holding those resources hostage. It's propping up companies that really shouldn't exist. It's setting a terrible precedent. It's creating all kinds of moral hazard. And maybe we got a little bit of short-term benefit out of it, but it's not worth it. And, of course, now you have the government trying to blame all the problems on allowing Lehman Brothers to collapse, and that's the one thing that they did right.
Right.
And we're having more problems because they bailed everybody else out.
Andy Levy?
Congressman Paul, what do you think about the fact that earlier today at the hearings about AIG, your colleague Barney Frank says that the solution now is for the government to actually assert ownership of AIG? Is this what they wanted in the first place? And do we really want the people behind Fannie and Freddie running another company?
Well, certainly we don't, and I would say that is the motivation by many members here in the Congress, because they do believe in big government, and they believe that government should own businesses. So yes, and like Rahm Emanuel said, don't ever let a crisis go to waste, and they're making good use of this because they're moving in that direction. So it's unfortunate, but I think there's a lot of people here who not only believe it philosophically that's the right thing to do, but they also, many would say and rationalize and say, well, under the conditions, we have to do something, and doing something is not only bailing out, but actually assume ownership.
Yeah, if the government can't even do something as simple as deliver the mail at a profit, how are they going to run AIG?
Right. How is it that Hank Paulson, presumably with less due diligence than you would engage in if you were going to buy a corner deli, acquired this monster I guess he sold federal bonds to the Federal Reserve and got the cash to acquire the 80% stock in AIG. But think of the absence of due diligence, the absence of any professional verification of AIG's assets and debts and obligations and the public debt that he incurred on his own. There was no vote in the Congress. I don't even know if President Bush knew or authorized this, Congressman Paul.
Yeah, well, it's called moral hazard. That's a major part where there's no due diligence because easy come, easy go. But this has been going on to some degree for decades because we have government insurance and a Ponzi scheme in fractional reserve banking and all the guarantees. And here on the bailout, it's just more of the same. So, no, they panic here and they just dump money into it. They believe prosperity comes from spending, deficits, and inflation. And until we get the message out that that is the cause, not the solution, we can't win this fight. We're going to destroy our dollar. We'll further destroy the economic system. And the biggest tragedy they will destroy our liberties. And that is why this is a desperate fight to get our views out.
Before I pass the microphone to the rest of the panel, I'm about to give a speech in St. Louis, Missouri, to a lot of your friends, Congressman Paul, and I have insisted that the car that picks me up at the airport have a Ron Paul bumper sticker on it. Given that this is the state of Missouri, I don't know why, but something's going on down there. Do I have anything to worry about in getting safely from the airport to the hotel?
Absolutely. You make sure your driver has a driver's license. Make sure the driver's not been drinking. But this militia deal of scaring people and putting your name on your list, and I hope you don't cancel, Judge, because your name's going to be on the list. You're a friend, and if you're a friend of Austrian economics, if you don't like the Federal Reserve and on, your name gets put on a list according to the police officials the government officials of Missouri.
I will happily put my name on that list as a defender of freedom and especially the right to speak freely. But is there some effort on the part of cops in Missouri to harass people who believe, as we do, that the Constitution means what it says and the free market should be preserved and the federal government is out of control?
Yeah, I think there is something to this, and maybe that's a sign we're growing. Maybe we are a threat to their system. Maybe we're making inroads. Maybe we're making common sense, and maybe that is the reason that they're doing this. But nevertheless, I consider that a rather serious affront to our freedoms to put people like us on a list and claim that we're associated with these, dangerous groups.
Peter and Congressman, Congressman used the phrase, it's more of the same. And I question whether it is more of the same. It comes back to what I was asking you, Andrew, earlier. It used to be sort of covert, some of these tax tricks and the Federal Reserve taking interest rates to 0%. It's now overt. I mean, they are handing trillions of dollars of welfare infusions to corporate America. And A, have we hit a tipping point? And B, I mean, if not now, when?
Go ahead, Peter.
I think we might be at that tipping point. I mean, look at the spread now between the 30-year and the 10-year. It's widening dramatically right now as I'm speaking. Gold has risen over $35 an ounce since the Fed's announcement. The dollar index is now plunging. It's down by over 2% on the day. It's probably the biggest one-day drop I've seen in the dollar. We could be witnessing a turn. I mean, people could start to understand that there's really nothing behind the curtain. All we're going to do is print money, and that's not going to solve any problems. That's just going to usher in a whole new set of problems that are far worse than the ones that we're trying to solve.
I'd ask Mark. I mean, Mark, it's the velocity of a move like that. It's the quickness. When you see that, that often is an indicator that we're seeing something serious here, ripple effects.
Well, there was some evidence up until what happened today, from what I gather. I haven't picked up all the news, and I haven't really read the Fed statement yet. But it seems to me there was some evidence of some kind of stability in the marketplace, and that was the evidence of the market rallying and home sales starting to increase and some indication of a stabilization factor. And that's the whole purpose of this. I don't believe that Obama is a communist and that he is out to destroy the country and so on. I think we are all part of the circumstances in dealing with something we don't know. We're trying the Swedish model, which is to buy up assets and to inject liquidity and do these sorts of things so that we can return back to normalcy. And I don't know. I have a hard problem with the argument that, we've heard this many times.